So what if I told you that I built a profitable tech startup without being an actual senior software developer? It's crazy, right? I know it sounds unbelievable. So 5 years ago, I could barely write a single line of code. So fast forward today, I run a coding bootcamp at an AI-driven tech startup, and I'm far from a coding genius. And in this video, I'm going to share with you exactly how I did it and how you can do it too, even if you're not a hardcore coder. Stick around because by the end of this journey, you will see that your lack of coding skills isn't actually a roadblock. It might even be a secret weapon. But first, let me just take you back to where it all began. I still remember the very day that I decided to quit my comfortable job in finance to chase a crazy dream. And it was 2020. I had no computer science degree. I had no Silicon Valley pedigree. I just had a burning desire to build something just with my own two hands and maybe some internet to build something that could change lives. So I've basically seen how tech was transforming every industry, and I thought, why not me? The only problem is that I didn't really know how to code. And in fact, before I started helping others break into tech, I didn't know how to code at all. I was your typical business graduate who felt really lost in my career, and I'm stuck in this world of algorithms and frameworks, right? So back then I was just so determined to change that I locked myself in my room and I started cramming code like my life depended on it. And honestly, it felt like it did, because back then I was completely unemployed. I spent day after day grappling with things like HTML, JavaScript, React, Vue.js, Express, you name it. I was excited by the possibilities of what I could do with the technical skills that I would have, but I was also very, very terrified at the same time. I was asking myself, what if I couldn't learn this stuff? What if it was just too difficult? What if I was too old? What if I just wasn't smart enough? I was inspired by, stories of people snagging high-paying tech jobs without degrees, people building startups left and right without, having a computer science degree. But I was also scared out of my mind. So those early months were some of the toughest of my life. I basically had no income. I was burning through savings. And I basically vanished from my social life. While my friends were out, having fun, building their career, I was at home. So while my friends were out there having a really balanced life, building their careers based on what they've studied, they were partying, they were having fun, just living a really holistic, balanced life. And I was at home debugging code till like 2 a.m. every day with like bloodshot eyes and just headache every night. It's just really normal for me to question myself constantly. Like, was this sacrifice even going to be worth it? At my lowest point, I honestly considered throwing in the towel and crawling back to my old career because I felt like an imposter, a wannabe developer who would never measure up to real engineers, right? But then something happened that changed everything. About a year into this journey, a friend of mine who basically had a degree in IT, he asked me for help. So he actually wanted me to take a coding job interview on his behalf. Yeah, it's ethically quite questionable, but we'll save that story for another day, right? So desperate to test my skills, I just went straight for it. And to my astonishment, I was shocked because I passed, I think there were like 5 algorithm challenges. I passed 4 out of 5 of it, right? And suddenly my friend was asking me for coding mentorship, and he was even offering to pay me $100 per hour because to him it was worth it, right? $100 per hour, and he got the skills that was paying him around 5,000 ringgit per hour. So like, it was a huge aha moment for me, and it hit me because I had become good enough at coding to be valuable enough, at least to entry-level software developers. And that small win was the spark that I needed. I realized I didn't need to be a Google-level software engineer to build my dreams. I just needed to know just enough to get started and to attract the right people around me. And I'll tell you how I found those people in a minute. I found a really good technical co-founder. But first, let's debunk the big myth that holds so many people back. So there's a rampant myth out there that you need to be a coding prodigy to start a tech company. Let me bust that right now, right? Look at Steve Jobs, the guy, and this was even before AI, the AI era, the guy behind the iPhone revolution, Steve Jobs. He never wrote code for Apple. As Apple's co-founder, Steve Wozniak, recalled, he said Steve never ever wrote code. He was never an engineer. He was technical enough to alter and add to other designs. In other words, Jobs knew just enough tech to lead a tech company, but he wasn't the one actually engineering the circuitry or writing Swift code. He obsessed over the product design, the users, the product vision, the user experience, and left the hardcore coding to Wozniak and his engineering team. Steve Jobs is a famous example, but he's not alone, right? Alibaba's founder, Jack Ma, was an English teacher. He was never a programmer. The founders of Airbnb, 2 designers and 1 engineer, and it was the designer CEO who hatched the idea in the first place. And even today, about 1/3 of billion-dollar startups were co-founded by non-technical people. Companies like Revolut, Robinhood, and Calendly, they were all started without a coding wizard at the helm. So trust me, it's definitely possible to build a tech startup today without being a senior developer yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that tech skills do not matter. They absolutely do, right? The point here is that you personally don't need to have 10 plus years of coding experience and become a senior software engineer or have worked in FANG companies, as long as you fill that gap with either your own learning or to bring in a technical talent that you can trust. The real secret to success is understanding what a startup truly needs at its core, which isn't just code. It's solving a real problem for people. Code is just one tool to do that. So let's break this down to first principles. What is a startup? And at its simplest, a startup is a group of people solving a core problem using some kind of a product or a service. If it's a tech startup, that product usually involves software. But notice this, right? Nowhere in that definition does it say you personally need to write that piece of software. Your job as a founder is to ensure the software gets built one way or the other and delivered to users, and that those users actually want it. And that's it. So ask yourself, if I'm not a coding expert, how can I make sure that the software actually gets built and is great? There are two main paths. You could learn to code just enough, or you could find someone who can code while you focus on the other parts of the business, because they're all equally important as well. And in my case, I did a bit of both. Earlier on, I mentioned that I hunkered down and I learned to code for about a year, and I basically gave myself a personal coding bootcamp. I didn't become a senior developer in that time, not even close, but I became what I call dangerous enough, right? Enough to build simple applications, to speak the lingo, to not get BS'd by engineers. And this was incredibly useful later on, because it's like learning a new language before moving to a new country. You don't need total fluency to get around, but you should at least know the basics so you can communicate and not get lost or not get fooled, right? I'm a huge believer of this thing called being a T-shaped person. That means having a broad base of knowledge and one deep skill. For me, I chose to go broad in business and product skills and marketing, and deep enough in coding to understand how software is made. I picked up Vue.js, React, Express, Hasura, Supabase, GCP, whatever I find, whatever I needed to actually build prototypes, and I became what some call a full stack generalist. Interestingly enough, a few years later, I found out that this aligns with the advice from investors like Naval Ravikant. Naval famously says, learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable. Building doesn't just mean coding. It means creating something of value. The product, the service, the system maybe, right? Selling means getting others to see that value. So you convince your customers, your investors, your partners. And if you can cover both bases, even at the basic level, you've got an incredible advantage. So I took his advice to heart, right? I knew I wasn't going to be the world's best programmer, but if I could combine good enough coding skills with my business and people skills, think about folks like Elon Musk. He's not writing all the code at Tesla or SpaceX, but he understands the tech deeply, and he can sell the vision. And that combo is lethal. You don't need to be Elon. I'm surely not Elon, but aim to stack the skills. Maybe you're a marketeer who learns Python on the weekends, or a project manager who picks up some HTML and CSS. Every little bit that you add makes you so much more self-sufficient and so much more credible. Here's a comforting thought. You can improve gradually and still get exponential results. I love the concept from James Clear, his book, The Atomic Habits. It talks about getting 1% better every single day. It sounds tiny, but if you could improve by just 1% every day for a year, you end up 37 times better by the end of the year. And I definitely wasn't leveling up that fast, but even a steady drip of learning compounds. One more JavaScript function today, one new database query tomorrow. Each skill built on the previous one to keep going forward, right? Over 6 to 12 months, you can go from zero to building basic apps. And I treated learning to code as my daily habit. And over time, those small wins, they added up just like compounding interest. Now, the game changer in my story was finding the right partner. After grinding through code by myself, I eventually said, okay, if I really want to build a robust tech startup, I shouldn't do it all by myself. I've proven to myself that I could learn tech, but I was smart enough to know that there were people out there that were light years ahead of me in software development. So I started searching for a technical co-founder, someone who lives and breathes code, who could complement my business and product vision. And this is where a lot of non-technical founders struggle. I met many aspiring entrepreneurs who say, I have this great idea, but I just need someone to build it. Maybe you felt that way as well. Here's the truth that I learned, right? Ideas are a dime or a dozen. It's everywhere. What really matters here is the execution of your idea. And if you're building a software startup, execution means having great software engineers on board. A mentor of mine, he put it bluntly like this: trying to start a software company without a strong tech person on the team is like trying to build a rocket to the moon without anyone who knows physics in your team. In other words, you're not even in the game. If you lack technical firepower at the founding stage, you're not even in the game. I took that to heart, and I made it my mission to recruit the best tech talent that I could find. I ended up partnering with a CTO who had the coding chops that I lacked, but how I pitched him is key. If you're looking for a technical co-founder, don't make the mistake of treating them like some code monkey who's just here to implement your genius idea. Great engineers have their own ideas and huge contributions to make. I approached my future co-founder as an equal partner. I said, look, I have this vision for blah, 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 blah. I've built some MVP. I've validated that there's a need. I can handle the business side, the marketing, the sales, the fundraising, the customer relationships, and I know some code, but I'd love to build this together with you. We'll both own it, shape the idea together, and essentially I offered an adventure and an ownership and not a one-sided gig. This approach works because people don't get excited about slaving away on someone else's idea with no say. They do get excited about joining a crazy journey, quitting their job, and trying to build something world-changing as a true partner. When I framed it as let's build a company together rather than please code this for me, that's when high-caliber technical folks took interest. In fact, that's how some of the most famous technical duos are formed. Think about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. One had a visionary product idea and another was a coding wizard, and together they built Apple, right? Or Bill Gates and Paul Allen at Microsoft. Even the Google guys, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, both were technical, but one learned more product and business and the other went deeply technical. Investors just absolutely love the combo of a builder and a seller on a founding team. And if you can unite those roles in two people or even in yourself to an extent, right, you're golden. So if you're non-technical, start by looking around your network for the best engineer or developer you've ever worked with or you ever know, right? Aim high as one exercise. Visualize who's the most talented coder that I know, who also gets excited about new ideas. Have you actually asked that person to join you? Because you'd be surprised. The best people often are not approached because everyone assumes they're not available. So don't self-reject yourself on their behalf. Ask, offer them a compelling vision, negotiate with them, and most importantly, listen to the ideas, listen to their needs, listen to their feedbacks, make it their vision as much as yours. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Finding a great co-founder, or even to an extent, finding a great talent is just so difficult. It can take time and many, many conversations. You might even need to work in the tech scene or attend hackathons to meet folks like this. I actually spent time in a venture capital firm and a local tech startup meetups, which is how I met a lot of the great entrepreneurs and engineers that I know today. If you're totally outside of the tech world, consider immersing yourself in that world first. Join a startup as an employee, contribute to open source, or go to tech events. Change your environment to find the people you need, and it might feel like a step sideways, but it can set you up for a huge leap forward. So I got lucky to find a technical partner who shared my obsession with the problem that we wanted to solve. So once we teamed up, things really took off with him leading and building and me leading the business side of things. We were an effective tech team, and because I had put in the effort to learn coding basics, we communicated really well. I could sit in product meetings and understand trade-offs. If it takes 3 days to build feature X, but only 1 day to build feature Y, let's do Y first, for example, right? I earned my co-founder's respect by speaking his lingo and not over-promising things that were technically not feasible. So even if you have a tech partner, having that baseline tech literacy that I talked about pays huge dividends. Now let's talk about how we actually built the startup with this dynamic. This is where first principles thinking came in, a concept that I admire from people like Elon Musk and Charlie Munger. First principles thinking is basically asking what are the fundamentals truths here and building up from there rather than blindly following how others do things. The first principle I focused on was what do our users actually need? What problem are we solving at its core? So for me, for Sigma School, which is a coding bootcamp that I ran, the core problem was that traditional coding education is expensive, it's slow, and it's often ineffective. We wanted to create a faster, outcome-oriented, peer-to-peer learning system. And notice I didn't start with I need to use XYZ programming language or some fancy AI. I started with the problem and the outcome, and that clarity guided every technical decision that we have. We chose tools and tech stacks that let us rapidly test our assumptions. Early on, we even hacked together solutions with no-code tools and manual processes just to validate that the users will be interested to sign up and join us. And this is also something I really want to emphasize. You can go a really long way with no-code or low-code solutions in the beginning, right? In 2025, in this year, this is more true than ever. There are tons of platforms where you can build an MVP, a minimum viable product, without writing much code. Think about things like Webflow, Bubble, Zapier, etc. And of course, AI tools that can generate code snippets for you. In my case, when we first launched, we didn't custom build every single feature from scratch. We stitched together whatever we could find. We used like a landing page builder here, a typeform survey there, a little custom script here. We used some Airtable, some Zapier. The goal was to prove the concept and to get real user feedback. So don't be afraid of using shortcuts. With the amount of no-code tools around today, you can develop a prototype, you can get traction, you can validate your idea all without a senior developer. The key is to just get started. Build that scrappy version 0.1 of your product by any means. Once you have users and data, you'll have so much more time, and it's going to be so much easier for you to bring a great engineer or for you to raise money to hire one or to build a more scalable version. So in fact, investors are usually more impressed by a scrappy non-tech founder who hacked together a working product with bubblegum and duct tape to serve serve customers than someone who says, I have an idea, but it literally hasn't started anything. Remember, execution over ideas every single time. So one of my personal mantras, right, inspired by role models like Steve Jobs and DHH, is an obsession with product quality. I truly believe that if you build something great that solves a real need, the money will follow. From the start, I was obsessed with making my companies, like for example, Sigma School, the best learning experience possible, because I wasn't a veteran engineer. I turned what could have been a weakness into a strength, right? I was very close to the customer's perspective. I wasn't from some coding elite school. I wasn't coding whiz, right? Building a bootcamp for elite coders. I was building it for people like me who were newbies, ones who were lost in life, who wanted to find a new way to break into tech. And that gave me insight into how to design the curriculum and the platform in a really user-friendly way. And I encourage you and implore you, whatever you're building, get obsessed in a healthy way with your user's experience. Since you might not be the one coding every feature, your job here is to just be the voice of the customer and to maintain and to stay as the quality guardian, to make sure that the user experience always comes first. I would personally onboard early students. I'll sit in the classes, I'll gather feedback, I'll then huddle with my team to tweak the product. This tight feedback loop is where non-technical founders can really shine. You can focus on all those little details that make the product lovable, while your technical team focuses on stability and scalability. Remember what I talked about, James Clear and his concept of 1% improvement? So we applied that to our product. Every single cohort, we'll ask, what's one thing we can improve? Maybe the onboarding email was too confusing, we fix it. Maybe students felt overwhelmed in week 2, we adjust the pacing there. None of these are earth-shattering innovations, but dozens of these tiny tweaks over time made our product and our service dramatically better, right? Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement, as James Clear says, and the same is true for products. Lots of small product improvements equals one amazing product over time. So let's talk about credibility, right? As a non-senior developer founder, I initially felt I had to prove myself to be taken seriously, right? Imposter syndrome was honestly all-time high. But here's what I discovered. When your product and your customers speak for you, people respect you. You have proof that it works, regardless of your pedigree, regardless of your coding skills. When we started getting success stories, students landing jobs, or companies using our HR tech platform to make hires, that created objective proof that I could deliver value. It works. People were paying money for it. They were giving us testimonials, right? Real world results are always the great equalizer. Investors, partners, and employees care less about your resume. They care less about your coding skills and more about, is this thing actually working? Is it growing? Do people love it? So focus on those metrics that matter: user success, revenue, growth, retention. You can cultivate an aura of expertise by being the person who deeply understands customer and solution, even if you're not typing on a code. So let me address something important as well, right? Why is this relevant even today, especially in this AI era today? Because you might be thinking, okay, I did this from 2020 to 2024, but the world is changing so fast. Does this advice still hold? Absolutely, yes. In fact, it's so much more relevant today, and here's why. Firstly, AI and automation are making it so much easier today for non-developers to build stuff. We now have AI coding assistants like GitHub Copilot and Cursor and platforms that can generate apps from a description, right? If you're starting today with minimal coding skills, you have way more tools at your disposal than I did in 2020. Use them, right? I mean, that kind of also means competition is even higher today, but hey, screw it. It's still, how can you add the most value to your users? Nobody cares how you build them. Use it, right? In the AI era, the playing field is leveling a bit. It's not strictly the domain of elite coders anymore. What matters more now is the idea, the understanding of the problem, the ability to gather the right resources, be it human or AI, whatever it is, to solve it. Secondly, while AI can help you write code, it still cannot replace human vision, leadership, empathy, and things like that. This is where you as a founder shine regardless of your coding skills. Think about it. AI can optimize a process, but it will not inherently know which problem is worth solving for real people. That's your job, to sense and empathize with users' pain points and rally humans and AIs to build a solution, right? Public intellectuals like Yuval Noah Harari, he has pointed out that in a world full of advanced AI, uniquely human qualities like creativity, ethics, and multidisciplinary thinking become so much more crucial today. The founders of tomorrow need to blend tech with humanity. So if you're not a hardcore coder, don't afraid, double down on those human skills while leveraging AI and tech talent around you. And finally, now more than ever, continuously learning is the superpower. The tech landscape shifts so quickly. Just look at how generative AI exploded between 2023 and 2024. You have to stay focused and you have to stay curious and keep learning first principles in new domains. I never imagined when I started, I need to understand AI for HR, but here I am now, right? Diving into machine learning basics so I can steer my HR tech startup in the right direction. So now everybody has to be a learner, no matter how senior you are, right? So the beginner mindset that I had in 2020, I've kept it, and I remain always a student, and you should too. All right, so I think that's about it for today. Thank you for listening to my rant and my story. I hope it sparked some inspiration and confidence in you embarking on your journey. If it did, do me a favor, hit the like button and maybe subscribe to the channel for more real talk on tech and startups and personal growth. I would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment about the one thing that's been holding you back from studying. If you have any questions, do drop it down below. I read every comment and I try to help as much as I can. Thank you.